How's it going, guys? Thanks again for being here. Today I have another brand new release from Zhiyun, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys everything that you want to know. I'm going to be actually comparing this light to this one here, again, which is the predecessor. This is the FR100C, and this is the F100, and over here I have the M40, which is a very powerful 40-watt pocket light. So in this video I'm going to be showing you guys everything. This is my commercial studio. I'm going to be doing all kinds of tests in the background there. I'm also going to be showing you guys the differences between this one, and also the software, what this light has that this one does not have, and also a much better idea to actually mount this lights, because these lights, they have a 1/4-20-inch thread right here. As you can see, I'm not using that, especially putting this light on a horizontal mode. I'm actually hanging this one this way on a boom. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. And the usual disclaimer, this video is not sponsored by Zhiyun. I don't get paid to say anything. All my opinions and words are on my own. I know this is a 30-minute long video, but trust me, I'm not going to waste a single second of your time. So make sure you watch everything. Please try not to skip anything, because all the information that I'm going to provide here is absolutely everything you want to know about this light or this light right here. And plus, everything here is chapter index. You're welcome to skip. I wish you didn't, but you can actually skip to the parts that interest you the most. This light has a CCT from 2700 Kelvin to 6200 Kelvin, and it also has an improvement of 148 RGBs, making it brighter than the predecessor FR100C. You can actually operate this light from 0 to 100% in two ways: the 50%, 0 to 100%, or the 100 watt from 0 to 100%. This light at 100%, maxed out at 4000 degrees Kelvin, can reach up to 20,700 lux as long as it is placed 0.3 meters off a wall or any subject, with the power output set to 4000 Kelvin, which is the default when actually crank this up to 100 watts, which is the only way you're going to get 100 watts out of this light. And for the super geeks out there, myself included, if you want to know every single little bit of all the specifications of this light, please pause the video. I'm going to actually include the chart right here, so you can see everything they want to know about this light. Just pause the screen. A few months ago, I was also the first channel to review this particular light, the FR100C, and actually I was very impressed with the light output this light has, especially for being a light stick, being 100 watts. But the RGB side of this light, I was extremely disappointed, because the brightness was like almost nothing. So they actually made some changes here. So they actually added more LEDs on the RGB side of the light, which has currently 148 RGB LEDs, making it brighter than the predecessor FR100C. This light has 6 built-in 2600 milliamp batteries, and when you actually hook this up to a PD or power deliver USB-C charger, you can actually crank up this light to 100% while still being charged, but I still, again, don't recommend you do that if you can avoid this. They also improved in the way you charge this light, which is much more efficient and faster. For example, the old 5-ray supported a maximum of 25 watt charging current. The F100C, which is this one here, supports 100 watt PD fast charge power delivery with a Type-C port USB. You can use the F100 at max power while charging via the 100 watt PD fast charger. However, you can actually plug it in while you use the light, connect that to 100%. But the chemistry of lithium-ion and other batteries, what is definitely not a good idea to do is, let's say this light is actually left to 0%, completely dead, or 20% charged, and then you decide to actually plug this thing in, put this thing on a boom or a key light or whatever you want to do, and crank it up to 100%. What's going to happen here is this battery is going to attempt to be charging itself while discharging at the same time, especially at 100 watt, 100% rate. You see what's happening here, right? You're going to damage this battery very soon. The same way if you charge your phone super fast, it's a very convenient thing, but it's going to be depleting the battery very quickly. So my iPhone can actually last 5 years if I want to without dying all the time. Treating a battery this way is going to increase its longevity. A light like this here, what I recommend you to do is to charge in full to 100% first, and then you crank it up to 100% while plugged in and everything else. This light here, they actually did something to prevent that automatically. Maybe they should have done with this light as well. This particular light here, when it's plugged in right now, when you actually turn it on, you're not getting 100%, even though it says 100% on the actual dial here. Only when you actually unplug the USB-C cable, that's when you're going to see the whole 100% of blasting power of this light. Same exact thing that I mean here. What you should not do is you actually plug this in, connect it up to 100%, even worse to 100 watts of power, while the battery is actually attempting to catch up. At the same time, you actually be draining the battery. So when you unplug the battery, you can actually do whatever you want. Crank it up to 100%, 100 watts, whatever you want to do. And another thing, so you don't damage your battery again on the other extreme, don't let the light actually reach the point of shutdown, because every time this happens, even with your car battery or any other battery, the battery will never be the same every time that happens, including your iPhone, for example. So when you actually have one single bar here remaining, just, kill the light, shut it off, charge. Very important, you gotta wait until this battery cools down to room temperature, because if you attempt to charge any lithium-ion battery, especially a light of this power here, where the battery is actually hot, you're going to destroy the battery and also hurt yourself, because you never know what can happen to a lithium-ion battery when it's being actually charged to a very hot state. Wait until this thing cools down. Trust me what I'm saying. You gotta give this battery some rest here, okay? And by the way, this is actually in the manual, and in the manual of most batteries, but for sure, it's in the manual of this light. So my Canon R3's battery, the battery is pretty warm. You think I'm gonna be actually charge this thing immediately? No, I'll wait until it reaches room temperature to be nice and cool, unless you wanna deplete the battery, the cells, very quickly, so you buy another one from B&H, and about 3 months later, wait until it cools down, so you can actually charge the lithium-ion battery. Also, when you put these batteries away, any lithium-ion battery, this light, this thing here, never store away at 0% or 100%. They don't like that. And the temperature it likes is about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So when you put these batteries away, charge it to 50%, any lithium battery, okay? 50% and put it away, and in about 4 months, 3 months, check it to see if it is still at 50, and keep it at 50. So it's a little bit of work to maintain a lithium-ion batteries if you want this thing to last a long time. If you do this, you can actually have this battery for as long as, I have a Sony battery that I bought in 2013. We're in 2022. I still trust this battery to take on a wedding. This battery is not going to let me down. It's a 10-year-old, almost 10-year-old battery. Still works. And another thing, these lights are pretty heavy because they are 100 watts. There's a lot of stuff going on inside. So these lights weigh about 1 kilogram or 2.4 pounds sort of thing. So when you actually hold this, you want to probably switch hands occasionally or mount this thing on a boom or whatever it is that you want to do. This light is almost perfect, but not quite yet. And the RGBs, they've been improved. They're brighter than this one here, but still not as bright as the CCT mode. Doesn't even compare. So if I were going to be a little bit picky here, I wouldn't mind if they actually made another model like twice as large with more RGB diodes here, and to be maybe able to connect this up to 50 watts or even 100 watts of RGB as well. That's going to be insane to have a light stick like this. Both of these lights, the old model and the new version of this light, you can actually choose white or black as well. And every accessory such as the barn door, the grid, the softbox, they all fit here. This light is exactly the same size down to the millimeter. That didn't change. Same size, pretty much almost the same weight. So everything that you see here, barn door, softboxes, and grid, they also fit as well here. It's the same exact design on the side as well, nothing changed. Most lights that I reviewed, they usually come with a case, which is a good thing. This one is no exception, but initially they just provided a little pouch like this. As you can see, it's a very thin fabric, so it offers no protection whatsoever other than holding the light from here. And now they actually provide a fully padded case. This is a beautiful padded case, very nice and elegant. And around the zippers you find the little rubber material going on, very well finished. And inside everything is separated, isolated, which means the light goes right there, the power supply and power cords right here, the actual grid goes right in this pocket, and also the diffuser right here in this pocket. As a combo pack, you get the light, a diffuser, a grid, and also a case. It also comes with this power supply, which is 120 watts, 24 volts, 5 amps. And to install the diffuser is super easy. First thing you want to do is to close the barn doors this way. And then there's a little gap here. You simply, with one hand, insert this right there. Look how easy it is. And then you come here, and the diffuser is installed. It took me like 4 seconds to do that. And then you open the barn doors right here. And there you go. Fully wide open. And that's it. To remove, close the barn door. Come from the bottom here. And then it's out of here. And to install the grid, as you can see, there's some pockets on the side, which they go right where the barn doors are. You remove the Velcro out of the way right here. And then you first slide this one here. And the other one goes right there. And that's it. And then you Velcro this here. And done. And with this, you have all the lighting controls you need for headlight, whatever it is they want to do. So no light, you have this tiny little light in my face right there. To remove, simply remove the Velcros. In 2 seconds, this thing is out of here. The barn door is completely removable. All you have to do is to fold this way, and then you put your both thumbs on the back of the light, and then same thing here, and one more time here, and this is out. To put it back, just put it this way, open this up a little bit, and finally you should hear a snap. There you go. And here's another view for you. The actual holes on this light is actually the thing that attaches the barn door. So you want to put your both thumbs right here on the back. So fold this here, pry it open this way. Same thing here, and it's out. One important thing to know, the holes here align with the fittings inside the barn door. So I'm gonna take it out, and then you should hear a snap this way here. And then it means it's completely set up in place. This is a pretty heavy light. Instead of using the supplied 1/4-20 threads right there, look at the approach that I did here. It's simply a mount right here, and you mount right back in there. And the center of gravity actually happens to be right here in between this clamp and this thing right here. And I'm gonna be providing the link on the description, don't worry about it. Everything is gonna be listed there. So either with a light stand or a boom, you simply mount on a regular 5/8 stud right there. Tighten it down. Even has an umbrella hole in case you want to increase the diffusion of this light stick. And this knob rotates this way, and the boom itself can rotate the light that way. And of course, when I actually have a talent under this boom, this thing is actually very strong. It has rubber, and once you put the light in here, it really grabs it. It's not going to fall on a talent. So here's the thing, when you receive this light, try to hold it like this with 2 fingers. It's incredibly heavy. Same exact way this is going to feel when you actually mount this on a boom using the 1/4-20 threads. It's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress right here. Of course, it's meant to actually hold the light this way, but I'm saying if you mount it this way, it's like you're holding the light with the 2 fingers like this. It's incredibly painful to do this. So let's talk about the differences between the old model and the new model. This one, the FR100C and the F100. Let's start with the CCT. This one here ranges from 2700 Kelvin to 6200 degrees Kelvin. The same exact thing here is 2700 degrees Kelvin to 6200 degrees Kelvin. The CRI is the same, 96, 96. The LCI, 97 and 97. The RGB power. This one here has 16 watts of RGB power, and this one here has 30 watts, pretty much double the intensity and the brightness. The PD fast charge, this one accepts up to 100 watt current to charge the light even faster, and this one here accepts a maximum of 28 watts. The accessories that go here, they also fit here, including the barn doors and everything else. This one has no light effects. This one here has effects, and some of these effects in here, I didn't really understand what they are for until I actually found out what they really were for, because the effects I'm going to show you guys here is nothing like you've seen before on a light. I guess they are meant for photographers actually, because some of these effects you can actually set the camera to do like a 1 to 5 second exposure, 10-second exposure, and then you kind of move the light around like a wedding, around a bride or whatever. Then they have some artistic things on the background or whatever. So this is what these effects are for. But the other ones, they need a lot of work, such as the fireworks or candle lights and such. You know, they're very, very, very simplistic, and again, they cannot edit these effects. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you right now. So here's the first effect. It does this. Again, this is for slow shutter photography. And then this one here. And then that. This. Another one. You know, that kind of stuff. It's not really useful for filmmaking, only for photography. And then there's the SOS, and then this is the TV. And again, you cannot edit these effects. It's gonna be doing this, and this is pretty much it. And then this is the bad bulb. So it's more like a robotic kind of thing. It keeps like, tagana, tagana, tagana. You can't edit this here. So it would be nice if there was a little bit of a delay or different intervals that you can actually edit. And this is the candle light. The light is at 1%. It blows up the exposure a little bit unless I go there and adjust, but just to give you an idea here. And then the lightning, again, all it does is this. So lightning is supposed to stop a little bit, but it keeps doing this. And then I think it's fireworks or something. And that's pretty much it for the effects. But this is not it regarding the improvements and the difference between the two lights. Also on the firmware, they actually have differences between this one and this one as well, which I'm going to be showing you next. All right, so let's see the differences here. This one here displays the battery being charged, while this one here displays nothing. You only find out when you actually power the light on, which, by the way, both of them will remember the settings that you were, whether it is RGB or whatever brightness or CCT. If you actually turn off the light, for example, if you want to set this to 7% and set it to 5700 degrees Kelvin, you turn this off. As soon as you power it on, same thing with this one here, you will remember. Same exact thing here, you can actually change the values, press this button, then you control the brightness. Now this light here, I was actually telling them to make this more a run and gun kind of light. This one here, when you double press the power button, nothing happens. So you're only limited to dialing the actual thing here manually, as you can see, or the brightness. So when it is 100%, you either turn off the light or you have to come here all the time and do this here. This was my first complaint. They actually listened to my suggestions and complaints. Now you actually double press the power button, look what happens. Then you actually have the color temperatures, the presets from 2700 Kelvin, 55, 62, and 27. They actually forgot to do the 4100 Kelvin. Then you press this button here, and then you go from 50%, 100%, 0. So if you want to turn off the light to save power at 100%, all you have to do is to come here, press this a couple times. The light is at 0% without turning anything off. This one here, you either turn it off or forget about it. Same thing here, connect this up to 100 watts, 100%. It gradually reaches until 100 watts, which is a nice touch. So double press this button here, 0%, 50%, 100%, back to 0. And then tap this button right there. And then you have the actual color temperature, same thing, 4000 Kelvin, double press, 55. And the same thing with the HSI. To change the hue, you just double press. There are other creative ways to mount this light besides being on a light stand like this, or a tripod, or a boom, as you can see here. If your camera has some sort of a cage, you don't want to do this on a hot shoe mount. If your camera has a cage, you can actually mount this light this way, exactly how you see in this picture as well. So let's talk about fan noise now. This is actually a 100 watt light stick, so get used to the fan because there's no way to not have fans. This light, and yes, you're gonna be having all 6 fans here. So the difference between this one and this one, that also has been an improvement. This fan here, regardless the temperature that you are in, as soon as you connect this light to 11%, that's when the fan kicks in, regardless. And this one here, it depends on the degree of level of temperature that reaches inside. Here, that's when the fans start to spin, but they start spinning very gently, very slowly until it picks up. When you connect this up to 100%, yes, the fans are going to scream, whether you like it or not. Now, when actually doing an interview, if this happens to be the only lights you actually brought on set, or if you are somewhere else, or friend's house, camping, whatever that is, and you need a quiet ambient, no problem, because I think if you actually set this light to 30%, and you have your camera set to ISO 800, for example, aperture f1.8, and the shutter to 1/80th of a second, shooting at 30 frames per second, that can be actually a pretty decent light setup here, because I don't think the fans are going to bother with recording. As soon as you connect this up to 50%, you're going to hear the fan spinning more frequently and also louder. And not to mention, when it actually sets this up to 100 watts to 100%, that's when the fans are going to scream. But I think you can actually still do an interview, and that depends again the room temperature that you are in. For example, I'm wearing a little coat here, and the temperature in the studio is 64 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's rather cold here, so the fans, they were not kicking in at this particular temperature when I was doing the test there, in which I actually show you this video next. The previous model besides this one, when you actually crank the other light up to 11% or higher, the fans are going to be kicking on immediately. This one here takes a while to kick in. I've been having this light for at least like 4 minutes so far, at maximum 100 watts, 4000 Kelvin at 100%, no fans yet. They will definitely kick in here any moment, but when I actually set the light to 40% or 30%, I don't think these fans are gonna actually kick in depending on the actual ambient temperature. Right now, the temperature here is 66 degrees Fahrenheit and no fans, nothing. So you might be able to do some actual interviews with this light as long as you shoot the f1.8, ISO 800, keep this thing all the way down to like 30%. And again, this is a 100 watt light. That should give you what you need. So right now I have this light on for about 15 minutes at 31%, and the fans just start to kick in, but they do gradually, especially at this percentage here. The fans are on, I'm actually touching the phone right on the fan there. So as you can hear, it's very quiet the way it is right now. The other previous model was like zzz all the time, not this one. Now the next thing that you guys are probably dying to know is how long can you actually run this light cranked up to 100% at 100 watts with this given battery here. No problem, I got you covered. So the F100C works for 5 hours and 40 minutes at 10 watts, or 2 hours and 10 minutes at 25 watts, or 31 minutes at 100 watt max power. So if you crank up this light to 100%, 100 watts, you got 31 minutes to run. Or if you want to shoot a little something at 30%, I'm not saying the fans are not going to kick in at this particular brightness or power. Chances are less prominent that these fans are going to turn on depending on the room temperature they were in. But if the fan does kick in, I don't think you're going to be able to mess up your recordings, because the fans are spinning very slowly and this light's going to be at least, what, 4 feet away or 3 feet away. You know, it shouldn't be a problem. Especially if you're actually using a boom. In my case, I'm using a omnidirectional microphone which picks up the sound everywhere. A boom with a shotgun or a condenser supercardioid microphone is very directional, so the microphone is right here. Anything on the sides is going to be rejected. And also, bonus tip in case you forgot or didn't know, if you're using a hypercardioid condenser microphone, here's the microphone in the boom, it rejects everything on the sides, great, and it also has a very narrow pickup pattern here. So everything on the side and here is rejected, but keep in mind the hypercardioid microphones, they do pick up sound from the back as well. They're sensitive of sound being picked up on the back. Let's say that you are on a stage or with a band or whatever, you have a big speaker monitor return, you're going to have a nasty feedback coming from the liner side of the speaker because of the hypercardioid picking up the sound from here. So in this case, put the monitor 45 degrees this way or use a supercardioid microphone. So this is like the way it cools itself, the way the fans start to spin, or whatever the way it senses temperature inside. Here it's called something that they name a Dynavoid system. I don't know what that is, but this is what it's incorporated here. And what that does is to have the light communicating between the fans and the thermometers here, whatever that is. So here's a quick look at the M40. There's no displays. It's just a very simplistic light designed for run and gun situations. All we have here is the brightness and the color temperature buttons. They're all analog, nothing else. And a big fan right here. So avoid squeezing this here because you're actually going to hit a little fan barrel there. So this is not made or intended for you to touch at all. So touch everything here except here. Don't grab the light from here because you're going to mess up the fan. One thing to know, for example, right now this is being charged. It doesn't matter if you're actually using a USB PD power delivery or just a regular USB out of the wall. When you actually turn on this light, you're not going to have its full 40 watts of power for safety, again, because you're not supposed to be blasting this thing while the battery is still trying to catch up being charged. As soon as we eject this thing here, look what happens. Pay attention. Then it gradually goes all the way up to 40 watts, and then that's when you do it. Now, one thing that I actually noticed here, the dimming is not actually on a linear fashion. It's probably on a logarithm mode, which means it gradually dims up, and then very quickly here, and then when you're about 75% or whatever, the difference is like very minimum. See, like 100%, 75%. Just so you know, this is not a linear type of dimming mode right here. Now, regarding the color temperature, you know, at 5500 degrees Kelvin, it's pretty much okay. But when you actually start choosing another color like 5000 or 4300, even the 2700, even the 3200 degrees Kelvin is a little bit too yellow, I can see right now, for 3200 degrees Kelvin. So you actually have to dial by naked eye or using a color spectrometer or do a color correction on camera or in post-production. So at least on a daylight mode, it looks pretty decent. So all I gotta do is to kind of, you know, again, eyeball the thing here until, you know, you go back to the camera or the monitor and see, oh, okay, this is actually close to daylight and everything. So the accuracy of these lights are pretty good as far as the LEDs themselves go, but the accuracy on the actual, what it says here, 5000 Kelvin, you're not at 5000 Kelvin. That's what I'm trying to say here. So as long as you dial this in here to whatever, you know, matches daylight, once you reach the point here, yes, this light will be accurate enough as far as colors go, but you can actually really trust the dial here. So, and here's the front of the light. As you can see, as you dial this thing, the transition between the colors are very smooth, very gradual, as you can see here, which is nice. When I actually crank this up, dim all the way, they kind of, has a little bit of a delay, which is nice. It took me like 2 minutes to find out where the USB-C port is, and then I was like, oh, okay, it's hidden right here. So there are many ways to mount this light. As you can see, you can mount it on a stand or on a table. Just, put it on a table like this, or you decide how wide you want, open or not. And there's nothing on the sides besides the vents, as you can see. Now this particular little light, I'm gonna actually crank this up to 100%, and let's see how fast that fan is gonna kick in. Another thing that I noticed at 100%, notice that the brightest settings is all the way to the coldest or the warmest, which is 2700 degrees Kelvin. So I have the light cranked up to 6500 degrees Kelvin at 100%, and let's wait about how long it's going to take for the fan to kick in. It shouldn't take long. Oh, there you go. The fan just kicked in after 3 minutes or so. So I have the light cranked up to 100% to the brightest side, which is all the way cold or all the way warm. You notice that at 5600 degrees Kelvin or something like that, the light is not fully as bright as the extremes right here. So when I actually grab the light, make sure you grab it from here and not from here, because the slightest squeeze is going to cause the plastic to contact the fan here. So don't do that. Then when I actually decrease the brightness, the fan is still running until the temperature cools off to, there you go, now the fan stopped. So if you crank this up to probably half, the fan just turned off. It takes a little while to catch up on that. All right, so as you can see, I'm using everything Zhiyun, the F100C lights. This one here as the hair light, that one as the key light, and the M40 right here behind the subject. And this is what you get. So I'm gonna kill this light. Okay. So I'm going to start with the background light, then the hair light. Everything is set to 5600 degrees Kelvin. This particular hair light is set to 15%, about 10 inches from her head. And this one here is about 6 feet away from the background, cranked up all the way to 80%-ish, I guess. And let's finally turn this light on. This one is currently set to 5600 degrees Kelvin at 20%. The camera information is reading ISO 250. I'm shooting at f1.8, 85 millimeter, and the shutter is 1/80th of a second. And the ISO 250 is just a preference of mine. Most of these cameras, they are native ISO 800, so of course you can actually push it all the way up to 800 natively, and then you can actually increase the shutter speed to like 1/60th of a second, or close the aperture here to f2.8 at ISO 800. Right now I'm at ISO 800. The key light is set to same 5600 degrees Kelvin at 10%, and that one is set to 6%. At these settings, you guys notice that the temperature kind of drops to a warmer setting when you actually have this light set to a very low percentage. Anything below 10% or 8%, you're gonna have this particular warm light, which you're gonna have to color correct, which is no big deal. But as soon as you crank it up a little bit, you will see it goes back to the 5600 degrees Kelvin. Put it back to 20%. I know it's gonna be overexposing the image there, but just so you know, that looks daylight again. And then you close the aperture a little bit here, f2.8, something like that, and there you go. Okay, so the key light is set to 100%, which is 4000 degrees Kelvin, which of course you have to set the camera to 4000 degrees Kelvin. This light right here is set to the full brightness to 100 watts, which is automatically set to 4000 degrees Kelvin. This is how you actually get the 100 watts right here. This one I let it set to 50 watts at 5600 degrees Kelvin, just in case you want a little bit of difference in color here. This particular light is at 4000, this one here is about daylight. And the light on the background here is cranked up to 100%. If you want the background to be a little bit stronger, you have to put the light somewhere in here. You're gonna have less lighting coverage, of course, because the light is actually close to the background, but that gives you this result here. So I'm gonna put it back there. So on camera, let's see how low we can actually set these values. Right now I'm at ISO 100, f1.8, and the shutter is higher to 1/160th of a second. And again, the front light is set to 100%, the headlight 50%, and that light on the back, the M40, is cranked up to the maximum. And now, of course, you can actually jump up the ISO here to ISO 400, and then you can actually close the aperture, as you can see, or even shoot at 800. Keep doing that, or you can open all the way up to 1/8 aperture, and then you can do a shutter as fast as 1/1000th of a second. I don't know who shoots 1,000th of a second on regular video, but you can actually have this option. So just to let you know, with the light cranked up to 100%, you can shoot as low as 100 ISO if you have to. You got it. And the shutter is 1/125th of a second, aperture f1.8. Now I'm going to be installing the softbox. This takes seconds to do. Close the barn doors a little bit for now. Come over here. You can actually do this one hand, but since it is on the stand here, I'm actually do it with two. There you go. This is as quickly as it is. Then you open the barn doors back, slide your fingers right here, boom, good to go. And of course, since the softbox is attached, you lose a little bit of lighting output, so you do your correction here. You can even jump up the ISO to ISO 160, or you can lower your shutter to 1/80th of a second. Looks great. I'm actually surprised how good this actually looks right now, because it's a pretty decent lighting as far as a little softbox with this little light can do, given the fact that this is actually still a very small light source. A little softbox, a little wand light or light stick, if you will, because I'm usually used to bring big softboxes for an interview kind of set here. But it looks pretty good. And of course, when you install a diffuser like this, you can actually have a bigger light source, but that would be a little bit overkill or defeats its purpose of being a portable light. In this case, you better get yourself an actual softbox with the actual light here. But just so you know how it looks like this way here. I know this is going to be in a shot, but just to give you an idea here how this looks. You can actually super diffuse this light now. Now I'm going to be installing this grid. It has side pockets right here and the Velcro to attach. First, all you have to do is to close the barn door kind of straight like this. And then each one pocket slides right there. And there you go. Put the Velcro right here. You got the Velcro right there. And you got your grid installed. Probably have to up the intensity because the grid kind of reduces the amount of lighting output. So with the grid installed, you have all this light control here. I'm turning the grid just like 20 degrees, the light is already out. Look at that. And the same exact thing you can do with the headlight. All right, so right now I have the M40 as the key light. If some people would actually need to have a tiny light like this as a key light, but if that's what you want to do, here it is. This is set to 100% right now, but not exactly, because in order to have 100%, you cannot do that while the battery is being charged and at the same time the light being used. You must unplug the USB cable out of there, and then the light is going to let you have the full 100%, and expect that fan to kick in almost immediately, because there's a lot of power in a little compact box right there. So at maximum brightness, plugged in, this is what you're going to get right now. The light is about 5 feet away from the model right here. Now watch what happens when you actually unplug the USB cable charging out of there. And that's when you actually get the 100% out of this light. So nothing, a little bit, all the way to 100%. The fan kicks in immediately, obviously. That's 40 watts on a little tiny box there, and then you adjust your shutter or whatever you want to do. So with the M40 being a 40 watt tiny little light, with the camera set to ISO 400, 1/80th of a second, and f1.8, you see everything is blown up, at least her face is. You can either adjust your aperture if you need to adjust the aperture f2.8, or you can actually lower the ISO to around 250 or 200, whatever your taste is, or mess with the shutter until you find what you need. But the minimum settings you can actually achieve with this light without any diffusion in front, it's going to be ISO 200 f1.8 and shutter 1/80th of a second. And of course you can actually put a diffuser in front there and everything, but that defeats the purpose again. So I have a little diffuser right there. And it looks like this. It's going to give you a very nice big source of light there. If that's all you brought, let's say you're camping and decide to do a little something in the middle of the woods there, that works pretty well. It's a 40 watt light, I hope this video was useful to you. If you want to subscribe to this channel, that would really help out growing the channel. And speaking of which, if you want to use my B&H or Amazon affiliate links, they don't cost you anything extra. What happens is when you click on the link, I'll receive a tiny little commission here. So once again, thank you very much for being here, and I'll see you next time.